Hello, hello.
Hello, hello yourself, David, the Pakman. Happy to be talking to you.
It's great to be on with you again.
Truly an honor. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. I through a contrivance got to see my family earlier in the month, so I didn't see them this time. We just had
A
a
contrivance. Is that legal?
it shouldn't be. I got baited into heading down to LA for a Jubilee appearance, but it turns out it got
Okay.
canceled after I booked the flight. So my parents are there anyway, so.
Oh, I see. Do you say where you're based regularly?
Oh, I'm in Seattle normally.
Oh, okay. Oh, so literally down the coast.
Yeah, or up the coast.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Um,
And what are you on planes? Are you like doing full N95 or just like one of the cloth masks?
just a rotating series of disposable masks. I never found a cloth one that looks good with a beard. I don't know if I ever could find one that looks good with a beard. I fucking hate these
Oh, I
masks.
see. I see. I see. I see.
Yeah.
Are you like when you're on a plane, do you
No.
feel like you're more at risk of catching it or on a plane you feel safe?
Um, Honestly, I don't feel that at risk on a plane because airports and airplanes are one of the few institutions that actually seem to take seriously the whole wiping down every surface, that kind of thing. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel more at risk at like a grocery mart than I do on a plane. But that's just I don't know. It's just my
Oh,
feeling.
that's interesting. See, I have a bit of a different perspective. I mean, I don't feel too at risk on the plane, but not because they're wiping down surfaces, because it seems like that actually is not really how people are catching this. It's more just like you're near someone who has it and you're breathing the same air.
Yeah.
But because of the very high efficacy air filtration and mandatory masks.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, I forgot about the air filtration. They'd have to keep that standard up there. I do still hate
Yeah.
flying, though. Honestly, COVID is the least of my worries. I just hate heights. So it's just, I'm not a big fan, as for the concept.
Do you medicate on the flight?
No, I try not to. I know people who have to take Ambien or whatever, but I usually just stock up on audio, audio books I haven't listened to or podcasts or whatever the hell else, and just try to live through it.
I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. No, I know people who take sedatives when they fly, stuff like that.
Or they just drink. If in first class, right? They usually just give you wine. You can get enough of that. I mean, that might help.
Sure. Oh, are you flying in first class?
Only flown in first class once. It was somebody else was paying for it, and I didn't like them, so I just went with first class and booked it to them. That was a lot of
Oh,
fun.
that's a good move. That's a beautiful move.
Yeah, it's the only time I would afford myself that indulgence. If economy is good enough for Bernie, it's good enough for me.
Right. Well, I'm seeing pictures of him up front too, but I guess that's a story for a different day.
Oh, he varies a little bit, getting complacent in his old age. Um,
Are you now on Thanksgiving? Are you do you eat turkey? Is that a big thing for you?
I know turkey's like the worst meat. No, no, well, okay, this time we just had mac and cheese. It was disgustingly rich mac and cheese. I got some tarts and some pies. Um, but normally no. I'm more of a stuffing bread roll pecan pie food coma type of guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
about you?
Oh, yeah, I had some turkey. I had some turkey. I mean, it's like, it's always kind of dry and like you're really counting on it's really about the quality of the gravy, quite frankly, that because the turkey breast, it's like it is what it is.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do to juice it up, I think. Did you who'd you celebrate with? Like
Oh, with family, with family.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, yeah, just
Yeah.
it was just me
Yeah.
and my roommates. But
Oh, okay.
the family, very flexible term. Whoever you're with can be your family on Thanksgiving. It's the magic of the holiday.
Are your roommates sort of like I'm guessing you're the most famous of the people you live with. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I guess so.
Are they resentful of your fame?
I maybe they would be if I made them pay rent. But honest to God, I feel like they're getting the good end of the deal on this one.
Oh, you pay for their rent.
That only seems fair, right? Like proportionally.
I don't know. I don't know what the circumstances are.
I would never. I'd feel like such an asshole. Like oh yeah, you've got this arrangement, that, and the other, and we're all going to split it three ways, and then I watch them like pull out the coins they've got buried in the back of their wallet to try to make rent. No, no,
Oh, do you own the place? Is that the
no, no,
situation?
no. We're
Oh,
all
you
we're
don't.
all renting. Yeah,
You're all renting.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, I see. I see. You're not like rent seeking or something like that.
No, as far as my audience knows, we're all renting. I would never become a landlord. Wouldn't. Yeah,
As
can't
far
let
as
them
my
catch me.
audience knows. Okay, I gotcha. Very, very good. We'll check the property records later and determine exactly the arrangement there.
Oh yeah, just try to catch me.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, so on the flying thing, I did want to ask: do you not like the discomfort of it, or is it you're worried the plane will crash?
I think it's shifted more with time because when I was younger, I was just terrified of crashing. And I still don't like that, But now I think the physical discomfort is the worst bit by far.
Okay.
The seats are so tiny, and I'm a decently big guy,
Oh, is that right? How tall a guy are you?
I'm 6'2", and I've got wide hips, so they bridge up against the little armrests like on the sides, but you can't lift them if you're next to a stranger, of course. So
I had no
yeah.
idea you were 6'2", because in the infamous picture of you sitting next to Stephen, Kenneth, Destiny, Bunnell II, you guys are sitting down, and it's hard to tell relative size.
Yeah, and out of respect, I try to lean down a little bit, stoop my shoulders.
You're slouching down just to not impress people too. Yeah, I know what you're saying. That's good. That's polite.
Yeah, just common etiquette, I think.
I think so.
The last flight, before we talk about anything serious, the last flight that I had was utterly miserable. I had a headache the duration of the return flight, but the woman directly in front of me, this older lady who didn't speak English, only Spanish, and she actually had like a medical emergency. She couldn't breathe that well, so they brought out the oxygen tank. They did the whole "is there a doctor on board" thing, and I actually, with a headache, got to have 40 minutes of people swarming next to me, elbowing me in the side of the head as they shuffle around. The woman directly in front. She was fine.
Now, when they ask for a doctor on a plane, I wonder if people stand up and say, "I'm a doctor, but I mean, I'm a doctor in sociology," or in that context, is it known that they only want a medical doctor?
I'm actually really proud of my flight guests because it seems like every one of them got the connotation. I had not one of them.
They knew they wanted a medical doctor,
and not one of them stood up and was like, "Yeah, I've got a doctorate in mathematics," and
right.
Yeah, this shit's whack. So I'm proud of them. Maybe the next flight though.
It's funny because there, everybody knows exactly what they're looking for. My dad has had situations where he actually is a doctor, but a psychiatrist, and he'll wait because he knows when they're asking for a doctor, they'd rather it not be a psychiatrist. So he'll usually wait. But then if it's like nobody steps forward, then he'll be like, "I'm a doctor." Okay.
Yeah, because that's better than nothing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's better than nothing.
You're still definitely a few steps up above the average person.
Sure. I mean, it is a medical
nurses.
Doctor, but
Yeah, but you could probably I don't know, look at people's eyeballs and get something from that. Their state of being, how they're feeling. I don't know. It's something more than I know.
Well, his thing was very simple. It was someone was having a food allergic reaction of some kind, and they had. So you don't really see shrimp that often on planes, but they had shrimp, and then it was like, "Oh, I think I might be allergic to shrimp," and my dad just had to say,
out. Jesus.
Do you guys have Benadryl in your medical kit? And they were like, "Yeah," and he was like, "I'd probably give him a Benadryl. I don't know," and then the guy was fine.
Oh, okay. Well, good thing it didn't require one of those EpiPens. That'd be
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
What a time.
So listen, what are we talking about today?
Oh, my as my resident favorite liberal, I wanted to talk with you a little bit about Rittenhouse.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so I mean, you covered the trial, obviously. All the trial that I saw was through your stream, so I know you.
Beautiful. I know you were in there leaving very powerful super chats.
Yeah. And you were there very powerfully leaving the stream for hours at a time, collecting revenue while
I did have work to do. I had to plan my next show,
well, not all live streamers have that privilege. I actually have to. I rush back from the bathroom after peeing to keep from losing viewers, but no.
Fair.
Okay, so as for the legal outcome, I get it. I understand where that all came from. Morally, still don't think that she should have been there. I don't think that's a controversial
she who?
He. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I've read so many memes about Rittenhouse transitioning to own the libs. It's infecting me. But I've seen how that all went. Have you had the pleasure of seeing the Tucker Carlson interview?
Yes, I have.
What did you think of that?
Well, I mean, listen, Oh God. So I feel like I have to issue 10 disclaimers. Like the opinion I'm going to give has nothing to do with the verdict. I get the verdict. It's the verdict I expected, etc. So like I'm just going to talk about the interview as an interview. Um, I thought it was part of the predictable lionization and making a hero out of the guy. I mean that's if you want my one line analysis, it's that. I did think it was interesting when he says I support Black Lives Matter. A lot has been made of that was a calculated lie. He doesn't really support them, or he very narrowly said, I support their right to demonstrate, and that it was like, I don't know, okay, he said he supports Black Lives Matter. It might well be true. It wasn't like the most interesting part of it for me. But for me, it was like, the beginning of the very predictable hero tour where then he met with Trump and they did the pictures with the thumbs up and the whole thing. It's just part of the whole media tour.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've been seeing a lot of mixed reactions online because I know there were a ton of conservatives who wanted Rittenhouse to be this like ride or die angel of MAGA conservatism, where he'd go up there and he'd screech like "Let's go, Brandon," and Tucker Carlson do the OK sign, and then like talk about trans bathroom, some insanely partisan shit. When I was watching the interview, he came off most to me like a really like partisan Republican, like talking points you'd hear from like a a pundit when talking about self-defense and the trial specifically. But on other stuff,
I agree. The moment specific, sorry to interrupt, the moment where I knew this was like so calculated and coached, and it's okay to be coached, I'm not saying it's bad, being prepared for an interview, okay, was where he started to say, it's the moment where he says the trial wasn't about Kyle Rittenhouse. It was about self-defense. And then he says, if I was guilty, no one would be able. And then he goes, no. He goes, no one would be privileged. And it's like, that's the language his lawyer used. Yeah. That's the language his lawyer used,
I feel like that was absolutely, where the Soviet spy conditioning kicked in or whatever, where he was most trying to deliver a point, because I felt like in contrast, the rest of the interview, he came off relatively measured. I'm not here singing his praises or anything. I'm not saying he, came off like a hero of the revolution, but oh God, hold on. There we go. Sheesh. Coffee.
Oh my God. What was that? That sounded like a gerbil.
No, it's coffee. I have cinnamon on top. It adds texture to my throat.
Okay, got it.
But not to sing his praises or anything like that. But for the rest of it, it felt to me like he was sort of passively rejecting a lot of the stuff that I would expect him to cash in on. He said that the left and the right had both exploited him for political gain over the course of the trial. He seems to be uninterested in these showboaty, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Boebert, Gassar attempts at getting him as some kind of staffer. And that's interesting to me, because I feel like a lot of people on the right were let down. They wanted him to be the emblem of everything they've been screeching about for the past 18 months.
I totally agree with that. And I thought, again, whether it was calculated or not, I actually think that he, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much you looked at the online sphere in reaction, and there were a lot of people furious about his BLM comment, and a lot of people who didn't think he was, quote, tough enough when given the opportunity to send a message to Joe Biden or whatever the case may be. But there was a lot of that stuff where it seems like the perspective is just kind of say something to appease anyone who wants to be appeased, because the people who want to be mad will be mad either way.
Yeah, for sure. Because the advice that I've given at this point is that, at least to my audience, you can't take any of this seriously anymore. If you take it seriously, like if you take it with great gravitas, oh, Rittenhouse, this, that, or the other, you come off like a sore loser. Now, Rittenhouse himself acknowledged that if he was black, he might not have been given the same prosecutorial privileges that he was given being a white guy, which I thought was interesting. But I feel like now that we're like on the other side of the verdict, it's irresponsible, because I've seen this somewhere in online spaces, to go, oh, well, he only got off because of white supremacy or because of this, that, or the other, because you can't really substantiate that stuff directly, even though it's sociologically omnipresent. and it makes you come off like, like a sore loser, like, oh, well, you only won because you cheated, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I have not, I don't know that I mentioned white supremacy during the trial other than the controversy over the picture, which was not admitted as evidence. But have people been saying after the fact that the verdict is a result of white supremacy? I didn't even hear that.
I don't think through official sources, more just like people getting angry on Twitter, a couple of viral tweets, stuff like that. I think
Oh,
because if a conservative sees that, right? I mean, it must be pretty reaffirming, like Rittenhouse wins and then the left engages in behavior that to them reinforces the idea that the left will call anything racist if they don't like the outcome. Um, same with the stuff with the interview with Tucker Carlson. I think it's quite funny, this ideological dissonance, I think, between the party and Rittenhouse's behavior post verdict. But if you look into it too hard, I feel like you're opening yourself up for a lot of disappointment. I'm just kind of hoping that something, really funny happens in the future. Like he gets into a beef with some conservative, like prominent conservative who says that he's not living up to their expectation. I think that'd be very funny.
yeah. Or, I mean, there's always the chance that well, you remember the George Zimmerman Trayvon Martin case?
Yeah.
When that was done, it was pretty obvious that this was not the end of Zimmerman's legal troubles, and indeed it wasn't. With Rittenhouse, I actually do think now he seems to be better advised. He actually may stay out of trouble indefinitely. Whereas with Zimmerman, it seemed like the guy was so out of control that it was bound to get, and he had a domestic violence issue and some other issue. I actually don't know that that's likely to happen with Rittenhouse.
Yeah, I think I agree. I would be very surprised if he ever does anything like that again, Not because I think he's undergone this gigantic ideological shift. He just doesn't seem to me like the kind of person who's predisposed towards violence, I guess I could say. Like it seems, at least from his behavior, maybe that's how he's shaped up since then, that whatever decision making led him to go and do his vigilante bit over at Kenosha was more or less circumstantial, that he's not going to be like gunning for the next opportunity. I could be wrong, but I think that's true. I don't think he's going to get any easy shots in like that.
No, I think if in a few months or in a couple years there's another similar event in some other, Antioch, Illinois, or whatever, wherever, some equivalent place that's driving distance from where he is, I would be surprised if he chooses to show up to guard a business with an AR-15, quite frankly.
Yeah, Rittenhouse, the Rittenhouse inning too. I don't think I'm ready for that one. I think I need a bit of
Right.
a break. I it's I'm interested in seeing how things go. I mean, best case scenario is that he stays out of stuff and just lives a regular life from now on, which I think would be ideal. But obviously, the talking points from the trial will remain. I know you don't do debates as often, I guess, as I do, but when you see conservatives say, like the liberal media lied about this, that, or the other, what do you say to that? Like, what talking points do you have? How do you plan to address that? What will probably be years of accusations of bias.
Right now, I mean, I've not talked to anyone who has really asked me to address that. I mean, my audience knows I basically don't watch corporate media other than specific things that I plan to talk about on my show. And I also don't even really remember the coverage from the beginning of it. So, I mean, if it becomes an omnipresent thing, to use your term, I will have to think about that. But I just don't even, I don't know. I mean, it's just not a conversation I've even had up to this time.
Okay, that's fair. I
To,
know
to
that.
go back to
Oh
the
yeah.
white supremacy thing, though, to go back a little bit, because I didn't want to get away from that immediately. The issue I have with that is you can always say that on some level that's the explanation, and it's essentially an indefeasible argument. And I'm reminded of there's this like a local story that a couple people I know were involved in related to an art show. And the idea was like, hey, we're going to have an art show, but in order to prevent possible bias on the basis of the identity of the artists, everything will be blind judged. So nobody will know the identity of the artists. Great. And then there was, without getting into the exact details, there was like a reaction about the rankings for the pieces of art where people started saying, even though it was blind, you had a jury in the art show that was all white, and that's reflected in their choices. And then later it came out, actually, most of the art jury were minorities. So it wasn't actually that. And then the next argument became, well, but they were privileged minorities, and one of them went to Harvard. And so their perspective is still emblematic. So it's like, well, you're never going to be satisfied that it was anything other than that. And it seems sort of like a similar thing to what you're talking about.
Right. Completely non-falsifiable. I think there are
Yeah.
times where you can make that argument fairly. Like, for example, the Ahmaud Arbery case, the police not charging until public pressure mounted. I am
Yes.
very comfortable saying that, I can't say, any one of the cops are like Klan members or nothing, nothing particularly direct, but that absolutely feels like something which warrants a criticism along those lines. But you could apply it anything, anywhere, anytime, and you see people applying it in instances where it's entirely unwarranted. If it's non-falsifiable, you have to have a really good way of using it, or a really good reason to use it. Otherwise, you could just sort of throw it out there blindly. Like for instance, I mean, we've kind of seen the opposite a little bit. I think conservatives are really interested in getting kind of like a comeuppance to the Ahmaud Arbery verdict. That Wisconsin is it being called a terror attack when they drove into that
Well, I think the right is definitely calling it that, although I mean it may be the right term for it.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know what developments have been made on potential motive. I know the driver was a black guy, and I've been seeing people, at least, people in my comment section of response, they were like, well, what are you going to talk about this black guy that killed these white people? So I think that they're looking to invoke kind of the opposite. I remember after George Floyd was murdered, there was that 5-year-old white kid who was killed by that random black guy. It wasn't racially motivated. It was just
Yes.
yeah, and they were like, "Where is the justice for this 5-year-old white kid? What you care about Floyd, but not about this?" And it was just like the guy was caught. He's going to jail forever. Nobody was defending him. They'll look for
Right.
anything.
That was the difference. That was the difference at the time, which is it was just there's no chance that anybody's getting away with anything here.
Yeah. So there's nothing really to protest. I mean, it's horrible, of course. It's just
Yeah.
I feel like so much of the discourse these days concerning criminal justice and race relations is really just waiting for the next highly publicized murder and seeing how the discourse evolves around it. It feels like the discourse never evolves unless it's being catalyzed by some horrible random act of violence.
Now, along those lines, the things that I have been more, it's like there's, I don't know how much you're aware, but like, for example, the community around Stephen Kenneth Destiny Bennell II has taken issue with my perspective on the Rittenhouse trial, and some others anecdotally have. And I've continued to say, for me, it looks like the facts point to totally plausible self-defense as an argument, and I expect not guilty. For me, the bigger concern here is that this is all part of the unique American gun culture, where guns are seen as a sort of totally normal and sensible way to solve problems, and that this event in principle was not really problematic with all the people carrying like the parenting. Can you imagine what would have happened if, when I was 16 or 17, any of my parents had gotten hold that I was thinking of even going to such an event, never mind going armed, never mind, I'm going to go protect a business. Like,
Oh
there's
Christ.
so many other layers to this,
Yeah. No, I completely agree. The issue, and I think Legal Eagle put out a great video that talks about this, is that self-defense is not even close to being a good metric for responsible social behavior. Where sometimes you have situations where a group of people can act somewhat irresponsibly, and you have an escalated series of self-defense killings until the last man standing is the one that gets the not guilty verdict. You can't. The idea that something is self-defense or like justified self-defense is not in any way like a holistic moral exoneration of their behavior. Especially with, I mean, you get cases like this sometimes. There was one that I saw where I think it was a gas station attendant was being robbed at gunpoint, and the gas station attendant actually disarmed the robber and pointed the gun back at the robber. And then a passing police officer who saw through the window one man pointing a gun at the other shot the gas station guy. You know, if you're in a movie theater, one person starts shooting, the second person shoots in self-defense. Now there are two people
Yeah.
shooting. Yeah, it gets really tough to judge these situations, and that's why I hate the whole vigilante mob violence response. You know, just marauding through the nighttime streets as rioters and looters sort of gallivant around. Like, this is, you're maximizing the likelihood of violence here. It's not about protection. It doesn't protect anything.
Agreed. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember that. I mean, when you mentioned the movie theater, I'm guessing you're alluding to the Aurora Batman movie theater incident, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, in that, but I mean broadly too. Like, just imagine being in that situation, and you hear like gunshots coming from either side of the room. Like, how do you?
Right, right. Well, I guess my point was going to be at the time, I don't know if you remember, there were people saying the problem is that the movie theaters are gun-free zones and there weren't armed people there. And then you say, well, hold on a second. You're saying if there had been additional shooters in the dark theater, it would have been better. And then they usually will retreat to, well, no, if it's known that it's not a gun-free zone, the shooter wouldn't have attempted this there in the first place, which seems to completely ignore that a lot of these public shooting incidents are not people thinking clearly in that way anyway, you know?
They're going there to die. A lot of these people expect to be suicided by cops. They're not going to be
Yeah.
deterred by the knowledge that 1 in 100 people might have brought their Glock to a Batman screening. I
Right.
I really agree though about the sort of the sociological implications, because if you want to take like a really depersonalized stance, I think that Rittenhouse ultimately is a victim of a lot of social
Yes.
tendencies. Yeah, here in the States, gun culture being a huge part. You know, the obsession with, and this is like a long-standing conservative thing. You know, racial protests are leading to violence in the streets. Our civilization is being destabilized. We need strong people out there with guns. This narrative has been around since before the civil rights movement, but it always ends in violence. It's possible to believe that too, with not a drop of racism in your body. You know, you can believe that totally race neutrally, but it's a way of getting sometimes non-racist people in line with sort of the systemic uh you know, white supremacist tendency. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I wonder, I mean, the problem is that when you say what's the full conclusion to this, it's everybody would be safest if just everybody had a gun. And unfortunately, like under the paradigm we have in which people can obtain firearms and all of the specifics, that only leads to a lot of people who currently don't have guns and have violent impulses having the same impulses plus the guns in more situations. And so they see the logical conclusion as once everybody's armed, no one would ever shoot anybody because you know everybody's armed and you'll end up getting shot. But it's like they already know they're likely to end up getting shot and it doesn't deter them now.
Yeah, they clearly don't. I was I was actually present at a shooting once, you know.
Oh, really?
At Santa Monica College back in 20, I don't know, something, 13. There was a shooting there at the library just outside of it while I was further in, and the guy you know, came there, I think, to be suicided by cop. That's always how this ends, right? They very rarely get captured alive. The whole an armed society is a polite society thing is absolute bullshit. It's mathematically disprovable. Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge you know, proponent of gun rights. I have 6 guns just off to my right now. But there's a huge difference between gun ownership and gun culture. And the gun culture thing, the idea that guns are like this, you know, valuable weapon of, you know, social righteousness. They're an extension of your masculinity. They'll solve any problem. You will be attacked every day of your life if you're not armed. That bullshit, that paranoid fear-mongering, that's, I think, the critical issue. You know, the Swiss have plenty of guns in their households, but they're all,
Yeah.
you know, ex-military training, you know, kept clean, stored up in the attic type deals, not
Well, it's
what
quite
we
simple.
do.
If you ask the Swiss, do you see guns as maybe being the way to solve a social, political, or interpersonal problem? The answer would be almost 100% no.
Mhm.
Whereas if you poll people in the US, and there was recently a poll done here, more general, it didn't say guns, but it said violence. But I'm sure if you repeated the poll with guns, a lot more people in the US believe that, at least on some of those interpersonal, political, or social, guns are a valid way to solve that problem. So you take that perspective among some people and you combine it with a ton of guns, it's not shocking what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah, or people who think that having a gun in your house will make you safer. It won't, mathematically. You're not going to stop a burglar or a robber or whatever. That's not going to happen. Or people who think open carry makes like communities safer. Or people think concealed carry is like you'll be mugged like every other week. You know, it's nonsense. But people believe this down in their gut. I mean, down to their core. I'll just say, by the way, because otherwise my commie friends, you know, they'll get mad at me. The big thing that I advocate for with regards to guns is, I know that we've got a ton of guns in this country, and I know a ton of them are held by people with whom I share tremendous political disagreements. And if things get bad in this country, you know, really destabilized, 20, 50 years, I don't know, whatever in the future, I would think it nice if relatively progressive city communities were armed and not just the right-wing militias that would start patrolling the streets the moment they got the chance, you know?
Yeah. So my audience knows, like I've said before, I don't really talk about my gun ownership or lack thereof, or I just don't see any real advantage to making it a personal thing. But I've said that over the last few years, many of my progressive friends have started legally arming themselves. And the reason they cite is, I don't want the right wingers having all the guns or being the only ones with guns. That's the number one reason they cite. Many of them don't particularly like shooting guns. They're not target practice people. They don't believe that in terms of armed robberies or whatever, they're going to be statistically safer but they say, if we play this out and the right is the only political side that's armed, that seems bad. And that's the number one reason they are pursuing firearm ownership.
Totally agree. I think that's a really honorable reason, you know. If you don't want it in the house because you feel like you got like a mental health risk or anything like that, like you could keep it with a friend, it's just that I think the broader deterrent is valuable. Will some lunatic with an AR-15 refrain from shooting up a Denny's because 6 of the people in there might be concealed carrying? Probably not. But
Right.
if an entire city is generally known to be full of gun owners, you know, somewhere in their house, will that maybe deter potential destabilizing militia action? Maybe it could. I don't know. Possibly. We have to have something, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess I don't know. But I agree with you that at the individual crime level, at least right now, it doesn't seem to be a factor that's taken into consideration when people decide about committing particular crimes. Now, that being said, I do think it's relevant, I guess, to mention that I don't think that there's much advantage to Democrats at essentially any level of talking about guns and gun safety, because it seems to only hurt them in any election that I've seen. I'm curious what you think about that. I'm not a Democrat. I don't know to what extent you even care about Democrats winning particular elections, but it seems to me that Democrats talking about guns makes it a voting issue for the right to come out and say, we've got to protect our gun rights by voting against this person.
Yes, I really wish they would shut up. Please, God, Beto O'Rourke is the last thing we need. There are so many independents, libertarians, and even moderate Republicans who are generally decent people who are terrified of the government taking their guns. There is no reason to keep biting this bullet. You don't even have to go big pro-gun. Just shut up about it. I don't think Democrats...
Just don't talk about it.
Yeah, Democrats aren't going to not vote for Biden if Biden doesn't really talk about the guns, you know? Just lay off, you know, some simple, I support our Second Amendment rights. Then shut up about it. It's insane to me. It's borderline like they want to lose. There are so many people that are practically Second Amendment hardliners. I just don't know why anyone would waste political capital on this, and it never even comes to anything. What gun regulations have we had meaningfully in this country? The last big one was the bump stock ban, but like, really, there are hundreds of millions of guns. We're never going to ban all of those. What point is there in even trying? I
agree. And I even mentioned this in the context of Beto running and the clip from the Democratic debate in 2020, right? He just ran. I mean, it feels like so long ago. I guess it was 2020, where he was asked, wait, so are you saying you would like take people's AR-15s and AK-47s? And he like pauses and says yes. And it's like, that's not going to help him in running for governor in Texas at all.
Oh, in Texas, of all places.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a branding thing. I don't, I'm not that afraid of guns, you know? Because the attitudes that make people dangerous when they hold guns are dangerous when they're not holding them either way, you know? The paranoid fear
But they're able
mongering.
to do more damage if they are holding
Oh,
guns.
absolutely. Don't get me wrong. The guns do
Yeah.
not help. But with hundreds of millions of guns in the country, I'm not like holding my breath for a total removal. Maybe if
Right.
we were Japan and we had like no guns in the country, this would be a different talking point. But I like, if you have your average like QAnon nut, they're probably going to hurt me not through some sporadic shooting in a theater. They're probably going to hurt me by voting for politicians that are going to, I don't know, criminalize being gay or whatever. That's
Do the Q
more
people
my
even vote?
concern.
I mean, that's a different question, but
They have to with Marjorie Taylor Greene types in the Republican Party. I
Hmm.
feel like they've got to be at least somewhat invigorated.
Yeah, that's probably true. I guess we'll see in 2022. I mean, the thing is, a lot of them are in safe red districts anyway, so even without like the Q contingent, they'll still win.
That's true. Yeah. Though they'll in the primaries, they'll vote in the crazier reds. I think it's really a shame how the hardliner Republicans are evangelical boomers who will like vote. They like put on their calendar they'll mark off the voting day, but the hardline lefties in this country are all like Bodega, Kropotkin readers who believe in anti-electoralism and won't even get out of bed for like voting out Trump. It's pretty annoying.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have a sense of whether like okay, so in 2022, a bunch of them will get reelected just because they're in safe districts, and there's a few additional Q people that are running in 22. But like, if Trump doesn't run in 24, do you think that this like Q Trump movement just goes away, or do they become integrated into the Republican Party the way the Tea Party did?
I think I think it becomes fully integrated. I mean, even if Trump
Oh,
did something spectacularly bad, they've made, JFK Jr. like a legacy movement member in spite of him never having anything to do with anything, right?
yeah.
Um, because like the attitude doesn't go away. Republicans, the politicians, I mean, I feel like they're terrified of their voters. There was recently those that whistleblower from Facebook who said that at least in Europe, I mean the info was from Europe, but I think this is universally applicable. There were far right political parties who moved further to the right to match the increasingly radical views of their constituencies. So I feel like the snowball's rolling down the hill at that point. You can take DeSantis to take up the torch if you want, but unfortunately, I think we're going to need some kind of reconstruction tier social realignment to really fix this.
Yeah, speaking of which, I mean, for people in my audience who may not know, you are an actual bona fide socialist, not, someone wrongly called a socialist. How is the fight for socialism going in your mind?
Why would you ask me that? You know what I'm going. Why would you do that? Uh, Look, the primary goal of any socialist, first and foremost, should be anti-fascism.
Hmm.
Lenin allied with social democrat groups to fight against the fascists, the Thousand Knives in Russia. Mao stopped fighting with the conservatives to fight off Japan back in the 1930s. And they weren't even good socialists like me. I think that the goal, the black hundreds, not the thousands, thank you, the goal first and foremost is, I think, right now dealing with the Republican Party, and I think you can do that in ways which are more or less advantageous for, I guess, my long-term ideological goals. But to be honest, we're not really in a position to build anything right now outside of maybe the little spattering of a labor movement we've got presently. I guess we can kindle that little fire, like that little, match light to keep the wind from blowing it out. Apart from that, though, just keeping this country from spiraling into nothing would be a good, good a good place to start.
That's interesting to me because my perception of you is you're not really like a tanky socialist in a very particular sense. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but um, I was talking to my dad the other day, and I don't know if you know, but like I'm from Argentina. My parents grew up in Argentina in the 60s, 70s, where there was like the equivalent to the current tanky movement. They loved Fidel Castro and so on and so forth. And one of the things I was talking to my dad about was this contingent in the left now that sometimes sort of almost sounds right wing, like without naming anybody in particular. Like they often like authoritarians like Putin and Castro and others. They, whatever, the full kind of like package of the thing. And what my dad said was, for him, this is such an old playbook. It's the exact same thing that he was seeing among the Argentinian tanky left in the late 60s and early 70s, that it's not a new thing. It's that there's always been this contingent of the so-called left. And he was close to that. Like in Argentina, he was part of like a Jew, what was called a Jewish socialist movement. And it was very different than the people who like the Russian and all the different stuff. What's your are you part of that group, or what's your perception of that group? It seems to me that you're not part of that group.
Well, with I feel like I'm trying to think of the most measured way of putting this. I
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of people are looking for a kind of social rebirth. That people, when they're desperate or when they don't have much going for them, they're looking for some kind of direct, meaningful movement that they think will radically change everything they don't like about the world. And those people are
Okay.
usually tankies or fascists. Where I'm not. This isn't an argument against revolutionary action, but rather it's this. They need this. They have an emotional attachment to this. Epigenesis, this massive social revival. But then there are people who approach their political project in I guess what I'd consider to be a more decentralized way, where it's not really about the direct attachment to that process or its outcomes, but about the principles that you try to meet on your way there. Historically, in every major socialist revolution, you've seen these two groups fight and one of them win, and it's almost always the authoritarians. After
Hmm.
Lenin won, the worker councils, which he relied on for the first 18 or so months of the Soviet Union, were quickly disbanded, their members killed or sent to Siberia. In Mao's China, you had a similar situation. The students were weaponized against the teachers, and all the old guard were killed off, and then eventually the students were sent off to the farms. This happens time and time again. It's deeply unfortunate, and I think the ultimate issue is that it's just way easier to be authoritarian. It's so much easier. It's way easier. You get a military together, you entrust everything to a glorious leader, and you trust them to enact these principles, but this just doesn't work. It's the reason why sometimes I come off a little bit less, I guess, revolutionary than other people who believe in such a thing. I think you need to lay the right groundwork. You have to make sure the material conditions are ripe. The working class needs to be the agent of its own emancipation, with revolutionaries only being a tool to be used by the working class. If you do the opposite, where the working class is a tool to be used by the revolutionaries, you get a repeat of 100 years of failed socialism. They're just an angry mob to be weaponized until you can appoint a new elite cast of political agents.
Yeah, I mean, in our last conversation, and I'm getting the sense now, you believe in a more, I guess, what we would call a gradual transition to the system you believe is the ideal system,
Yeah, I think my
rather than a revolutionary transition.
my guess is we're not really going to have a choice. This is my guess. I don't know this, of course, but I think climate change is going to get bad enough that we're going to deal with economic downturn, resource, shortages, and climate refugees, and that this is going to lead to enough destabilization that America and a bunch of other countries are going to have like internal crises over what to do. And at that point, it's either going to be like some kind of fascist government or something more radical, more left leaning. I think at that point we're not going to have a choice. Like things are going to get really bad there. So for me, it's just about laying the bricks until you reach that point.
You're not like a CIA or anything, right?
Not to my knowledge, as many times I've been accused of such.
Okay, couple other things I wanted to ask you. Hold on. Do you know? So, who is Mr. Beast, and what did he do in the last 48 hours that people are going crazy about?
He's a big YouTuber, a very big one, a kind of philanthropic. He reinvests a lot of his money into the projects that he does. Like we're all stranded on an island. Person to find this treasure gets $1 billion or whatever. He's made a
Mhm.
recreation of Squid Game. Have you seen Squid Game?
I'm aware of it.
You should see it. It's good. He's recreating it. He built all the sets, to his
Oh,
means.
really?
It got
Like in
yeah,
real life?
yeah. It got 400 or so people. I don't think they're spoilers. I don't think they're killing the people brought on board. the way
Okay.
they did in the show proper. But I could be wrong. I actually haven't seen it.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna. It's actually something worth being aware of.
Oh yeah. Oh, Squid Game was lovely. I really really enjoyed it.
I just mean this whole Mr. Beast like version of it.
Probably. I've seen screenshots and I've seen little video clips, and I'm probably gonna watch it either today or tomorrow because it does look pretty funny. It's actually gonna be the first Mr. Beast video I've ever seen, so
Okay. Fair. Fair,
new to
fair.
me.
Now, here's the other thing. As a socialist, I wanted to ask you your thoughts on a debate I was having with my audience earlier, and I think you're going to be uniquely positioned to weigh in on this. Do you believe
Absolutely.
that Tesla's inexperience with building vehicles is going to slowly allow legacy companies like Audi, Porsche, and Mercedes to chip away at Tesla's electric vehicle market share by virtue of simply being better at building nice cars?
Unironically, yes, absolutely. I recently watched a video which linked to a few articles talking about how Tesla's cars are not particularly well designed or well priced. Tesla is unique mostly in making them cool. I don't think that Elon Musk is a competent businessman outside of the marketing element. I think that in terms of actually like a sustainable, long-term functioning product, he over prioritizes glitz and glam and under prioritizes like long-term sensible investment. And
Wow.
and I think very little of the man. But no, really, like electric cars have been around for what, nearly a century? And there are cheaper and better electric cars in the market. They're just not Teslas. I think that once the hype wears off, and it will eventually, nothing like this stays around forever. I think other companies are going to surge back, and they're going to be able to sort of scavenge the clout that Tesla's carved out.
I tend to agree. I am both an owner of stock and of a vehicle. And I am going to slowly start disassociating from the stock slowly, bit by bit. And I'm looking very strong. I mean, here's the thing. Here's what makes it very inconvenient to have any non-Tesla electric vehicle right now.
Mm-hmm.
The range of Teslas is still the best, and the fast charging network makes it really difficult to do long trips with any other vehicle.
Yeah, it's the infrastructure you lay down. If you're the first one
Yep.
to really capture or corner the market, you can edge other people out and force them,
Yes.
to yeah. So hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully we could, oh man, can you imagine if there was legislation on that so that like all the Tesla
Right.
charging stations were retrofitted so that they're universally usable? It's not like we
Yeah,
have
I mean
gas
the
stations that only
problem
work
is
with one
then
car company.
a lot of them only have 8 to 12 stalls. Then there's not an if they were open. I'm not saying don't do it. I think that would allow me to much more easily look at other types of electric vehicles because I know I could use the fast charger, but those fast chargers would be permanently full if they were open to every electric vehicle. It's just the reality.
Yeah, I think I mean, I'm a big advocate for public transport. It's not really relevant to this convo because you and I are probably aren't going to be taking buses everywhere, but I guess that'd be kind of nice long term. I feel like the dream would be that you could have this kind of thing at your house, wouldn't it? I mean, every house has an electric current running to it. If there was some way to like commercially be like, here for $150, here's an install you can get. There's a cord that like plugs out through the garage. You just pull it out, and there you go. You're charging.
Well, they do. I mean, that basically exists. It's a little more than. I mean, listen. I don't know how much we want to get into this, but if you just have a regular plug without having any electrical work done, you get a cable with your car and you can charge it. The thing is, it'll only charge like 4 to 5 miles per hour, which is very slow. You can then put in like a dryer plug, a 240 volt. That'll get you like 35, 40 miles per hour. And that's what I have, but you got to pay an electrician to put that in, unless you're going to run it all the way up to wherever your dryer is, But I think the bigger issue is when traveling away from home.
Yeah, yeah, that tracks. I think, I mean, the goal would be that we would only use these cars in, short distance travel, I think, right? At least when I think of
Sure.
like a good sustainable electric infrastructure future, you have your car for like picking up groceries in the city, but if you want to travel like far, you've got robust train or subway networks, and then when you get there,
Agreed.
there are local options. I think that'd be quite nice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in practical terms, we just don't have that. If you want to go, if you're in New York City and you want to go to, as I recently did, a wedding in Maine, um, maybe you could take a train, but it might take 30 hours because you've got to go to maybe Montreal first. I don't even know how you would do it. Obviously, that's lacking right now.
Yeah. Well, we can always dream of the future. There are a few
Sure.
channels I'm really, really fond of. Adam something does a couple of videos making fun of Tesla and Elon Musk in reasonable ways. I mean, critiquing the technology, and Not Just a Bikes talks about sustainable infrastructure, and I love both of them very much. European cities are so wonderfully designed compared to our own, so livable. It's one of the reasons I like Seattle. There are portions of Seattle where everyone's always walking, not because there's no parking, but more so because there's such a robust mix of residential and commercial zoning that there's always something interesting to do in the area.
Speaking of Seattle, by the way, I don't know how devastating this was to you. I'm guessing that up until recently, you were likely the biggest Seattle-based YouTuber, but with the arrival of J. Kenji Lopez Alt in Seattle, who has, I believe, one of the best YouTube channels in the cooking space, I think that may have knocked you down a peg. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, it's good for me. If I can ever sort of find my way on set during a recording, or throw a rock through the window, try to get my name on it. It opens up opportunities for clout sharking on my part that I'm really looking forward to.
Wait, am I even wrong on that? Is Kenji in Portland, Oregon? Now I don't remember. I know he's up in the Pacific Northwest somewhere. What I said may have been completely wrong.
Oh,
Now
I
I'm
don't
not
even know
sure,
who
but...
you're referring to. I was just yes-anding.
Even better.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I'm just working with it. The only cooking YouTubers that I've enjoyed are Binging with Babish and that one big corporate one that everyone stopped watching because there were accusations of racism from the manager. God, what was that called?
I don't know. That one I don't know.
Bon Appetit. And then they all
Oh,
split
okay.
off and made their own YouTube channels because everyone got...
No, my
anyway.
favorites are Kenji and Jacques Pepin.
Jacques Pepin? That is a Frenchman, I assume.
It is indeed, yeah.
Okay. Well,
actually, he's Cuban. Would you believe that?
Well, if it came from you,
kidding.
yeah. If it came from a less reputable source, though, you gotta watch yourself. I'll believe anything you say.
No, he is French. I believe he's from Lyon or something like that. And also Toon for Thai cooking. You can't beat Toon.
Jeez, you're getting me cultured over here. I'm really more of a chicken nuggies guy myself, so we're branching out of my comfort zone a little bit.
Do you not cook for your tenants either? I'm sorry, roommates.
Okay, I work and I pay the rent. Okay, these assholes can cook from time to time. No, we really don't make that much. We get those what do you call them? HelloFresh. With like 12 meals a week split between the three of us.
Nice.
Those are really good, by the way. I was taken away because they deliver it and then it's like in a box for a bit. I thought it'd be like so. Some of the meals that I've had there are legitimately some of the best food I've ever had. I can't promote them now though because apparently they did some union busting recently. So just
wow, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah.
Are you for or against spatchcocking when you do a chicken on the grill?
Spatchcocking. You're gonna have to help me. Give me a brief description.
It's basically you butterfly the chicken to make it the same thickness throughout in order to have even cooking.
Yes, you have to cut it down. Also, the best cut of chicken, okay, is about a half an inch, okay? You cut it in half, you smash the chicken a half an inch deep. That's the perfect chicken cut right there.
A half inch deep?
Like the thickness is about a half an inch once you've flattened or butterflied the chicken breast, right?
Oh, you're talking about chicken breast.
Oh, are you talking about thighs?
I'm talking about the entire chicken.
Oh, I see. No, I've never hammered an entire chicken down into a pasty sort of one.
No. You don't need a hammer. You don't need a hammer at all. Listen, I'm going to leave you to investigating spatchcocking, and I'm sure you'll have a strong position on it by the next time we talk.
Oh, I'm sure. I'll learn. I'll give it a shot. I'll share my success or failure story with you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Your idea of just smashing a full chicken into a paste is an interesting one. I've never considered it, but I might.
It's how owls eat things, okay? Just sort of grind it up into a little pellet. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for taking the time.
Ian Vosh, a gentleman and a scholar. Great to speak to you as always.
David Pakman. You take care.
All right.
Enjoy the stream, and I'll talk to you eventually.
All right, very good. Take care.
There you go. That was quite nice, I think. Feel like we had a pleasant conversation there. You cut him off? No, no, he cut out. He was speaking to... No, I didn't cut him off. He quit mid-sentence. He was talking to his audience there. Excuse me. He was live too? Yeah. Good talk. Yeah, no, I like Pakman. He's among other things, a very funny guy, I think. Easy to talk to. Excuse me. Who was that, Vosh? That was David Daniel Manpack Pakman. You forgot to go on a weird rant at him, though. Oh, yeah, that's right. I should have gone on a weird, unhinged rant. That would have been good, I think. Why does he pronounce Destiny's full name? Feels like weird. No, he just likes saying names. He just likes saying names. Anyway. Yeah. Holy shit, him calling Argentine communist movements in the 70s tankies when they were a lot of trots is annoying. Who taught the liberals our words? Okay, I'll admit I don't know much about the 1970s Argentinian communist movements. However, having read a little bit into Trotsky, he was a bit of a tanky himself, okay? I saw what he was justifying after the fucking 1917 revolution, okay? I saw him talking about the limitless ability to, you know, weaponize the working class, and you know, they don't need worker democracy, you know. Just because he got killed by Stalin doesn't mean he was that much better. He was just sort of the other bad guy.